How are Canada and the US different? 1. Politeness. Over the years, Canada has had the reputation of being a polite nation, more well-mannered than the US. But is it true? There's actually no evidence that Canadians are more polite than Americans. It may appear that way because Canadians, in general, tend to be a bit more reserved, whereas Americans come from a typically more outspoken culture. One place where Canadians actually are more polite than Americans, however, is on Twitter. A study that was done by a Canadian university analyzed the language Canadians and Americans used in their tweets. They found that Americans' tweets tended to be full of emojis, profanities, and other negative or offensive words. Canadians' tweets used more polite, positive language with fewer emojis. 2. Government. One of the most obvious differences between Canada and the US is in their forms of government. Americans have a president, whereas Canadians have a prime minister. In America, there are two major political parties, Democrat and Republican. Canada has 5 major parties, Liberal, Conservative, NDP, Bloc Québécois, and the Green Party. The power distribution of each type of government is quite different. Another major difference is that Canada is a Commonwealth country and its head of state is Queen Elizabeth II. However, this is mostly in tradition and nothing more. While the Crown, the monarchy, has official power over the country, the actual decision-making is done by Canada's government. 3. Immigration. For its size, Canada has a very small population. That population is aging, and people are having fewer and fewer children. That means the workforce isn't being replaced at the rate it should be for a thriving economy. That's one reason Canada brings in about 340,000 immigrants a year. The economy depends on it. Currently, Canada brings in about 3 times as many immigrants as the US, and 1/5 of the population of Canada comes from a different country. 4. Spelling. Canadian spelling is a combination of British, American, and French. This leads to some differences between Canadian and American words. Versus re, where Americans spell a word with on the end. Take center for example, Canadians spell the same word with re, center. L versus LL, verbs that end with an L such as travel, are converted with LL in Canada, traveler, traveled, and traveling, for instance. Americans write traveler, and traveled, and traveling. Or versus our, in words that take an or in American English, think honor or favorite, Canadians write our, honor and favorite. 5. Speaking. It might not be obvious, but there are slight differences between an American accent and the Canadian one. Here are a few words that show some of the pronunciation differences between the US and Canada. Sorry, in this word, the O sound differs. Canadians pronounce this word as though it rhymes with story. In the US, it rhymes with starry. Niche, in the US, this word is pronounced niche. In Canada, you're more likely to hear niche. Toronto, while Americans pronounce all the letters in this word, Canadians say Toronto. Z, the last word of the alphabet, is pronounced Z in the US. In Canada, that same letter is Z. Produce, when using this word as a noun, Americans pronounce it produce, while Canadians say produce. Pasta, in the US, you'll probably hear pasta, and in Canada, pasta. 6. Healthcare. Canada is known for having free universal healthcare. In reality, healthcare such as doctor visits, hospital stays, and surgery are paid for through high tax rates. So, while it's not free, exactly, Canadians don't pay out of their pockets when they have a medical issue, it's already covered. In the US, healthcare is generally purchased through private companies or sometimes provided through workplaces. If a person doesn't have healthcare insurance, they must pay for medical visits and procedures themselves. Same continent, different countries. Being such close neighbors, there are definite similarities between these two North American countries. But look a little closer, and you'll see just how different they are. Start your journey to reach Fluent.